Have you ever wondered if marriage is just about love or if it means something deeper? Good day, everyone. Today we'll explore the purpose and nature of marriage in modern Philippine society. In the family code of the Philippines, marriage isn't just a romantic bond. It is a special, permanent union between a man and a woman to establish a conjugal and family life. It's more than just a legal contract. It is a sacrament, a covenant, and the family's foundation, which is why the state protects marriage in society. Marriage is about mutual lifelong companionship and support. It's not just about having children. Therefore, we must ensure we meet the qualifications for married life to sustain our families properly. Now, let's delve into the essential and formal requirements for a valid marriage under the family code. As for essential requisites, first, legal capacity and consent are required. Both parties must be at least 18 of opposite sexes and free from legal impediments. If either is 18 to 21, parental permission is needed. For those who are 21 to 25, parental advice is required, meaning parents are informed but not asked for their approval. If you're wondering what legal impediments are, this refers to cases where marriage is not allowed during the following scenarios. First, existing marriage. A person cannot marry until the first marriage is legally dissolved. Second, consanguinity. Marriage is prohibited between close blood relatives, even first cousins. Third, adoptive relationships. One cannot marry anyone in the same adoptive family. Lastly, affinity. A step-parent can't marry their stepchild, nor can a parent-in-law marry their child-in-law.
Marriage is a sacred covenant recognized both by the state and the church. But what makes a marriage truly valid in the eyes of the Catholic Church? The answer lies in the tripod of marriage validity, a three non-negotiable pillars that uphold every valid sacramental marriage. First, we have consent. This means that both parties must freely and knowingly choose to marry each other. Consent must come from the heart without force, fear, or deception. If one person is pressured or not mentally capable of understanding the commitment, therefore the marriage is invalid. Second is capacity. This refers to the legal and canonical ability to marry. A person must be free from what we call deriment impediments, things like being underage, already married, or closely related by blood or bound by religious vows. These conditions makes a person incapable of entering a valid marriage even if they want to. Third, we have canonical form. For Catholic Church, this means following the proper church procedure. The marriage must be celebrated before a qualified priest or deacon with two witnesses and in a sacred space like a church. Without this form or without a church-granted dispensation, the marriage is invalid. So in short, consent for freely given, capacity, no legal or religious impediments, and canonical form done according to the church law. If one leg of this tripod is missing, the marriage is not valid in the church's eyes. The tripod of marriage validity reminds us that marriage is not just an emotional commitment, but a sacred, legal, and spiritual covenant.
An impediment comes from the word impede, meaning to hinder or obstruct. In the Catholic Church, it refers to something that makes a marriage invalid. There are two types. First, external forum, which are publicly known impediments. Second, occult, which are hidden or private, known internally such as through confession. Only the Church has the authority to declare or define impediments. Cultural traditions like saying a groom must have a beard do not constitute valid impediments. In serious situations, a bishop may temporarily prohibit a marriage, but only the supreme authority of the Church can create or abolish rules affecting validity. Dispensations may be granted. Bishops can dispense minor cases like fourth-degree consanguinity, or in more serious cases such as sacred orders or certain crimes. This must be held by the Apostolic See. In emergencies such as near death, a bishop or if unavailable, a priest may authorize a marriage immediately.
Let us now explore the specific derivatives outlined in canon law. These are the impediments that invalidate marriage. Number 1. Age. According to canon law, a man must be at least 16 years old and a woman at least 14 to enter into a valid marriage. This is an ecclesiastical law that does not apply to non-Catholic marriages. However, if a Catholic marries a non-Catholic, this age restriction still apply to both parties. Number 2. Impotence. A marriage is deemed invalid if either party suffers from perpetual and antecedent impotence, which is incurable and exists prior to the marriage. Number 3. Previous marriage or ligament. A valid prior marriage constitutes an impediment unless it has been lawfully declared null. This applies regardless of how or where the previous marriage was celebrated. Number 4. Disparity of cult. Marriage between a baptized Catholic and a non-baptized person is invalid without a dispensation from the local ordinary, typically the bishop. Number 5. Sacred orders. Individuals who have received holy orders, such as priests or deacons, are impeded from marrying unless the impediment is dispensed by the Apostolic See. Number 6. Public perpetual vow of chastity. Individuals such as religious sisters or monks who have made a public and perpetual vow of chastity cannot validly marry without a dispensation from the Holy See. Number 7. Crime. If a person causes the death of their spouse or someone else's spouse to marry a specific person, this is a diriment impediment, and only the Apostolic See may dispense it. Number 8. Abduction. If one party is forcibly detained with the intention of contracting marriage, the marriage is invalid until the detained person is free and consents willingly. Number 9. Consanguinity. Blood relationships within the 1st to 4th degrees in the collateral line invalidate marriage. The 5th degree may be permitted with a dispensation. Number 10. Affinity. Relationships formed through marriage also pose impediments. For example, one cannot marry the parent or child of a deceased spouse. Number 11. Public propriety. This arises from cohabitation. If a relationship has been publicly known, marriage with close relations of that partner is impeded, particularly in the direct line. And lastly, number 12. Adoption. Legal relationships through adoption can create impediments similar to blood relationships. For example, a person may not marry their adopted child or the sibling of their adopted child.
The first factor that hinders the exchange of consent is the individual's psychological capacity or the psychosomatic incapacity. To further explain this topic, there are three main aspects that needs to be considered. First is the lack of use of reason. If they possess any mental illness or is under the influence of any intoxication, they are not eligible to give their consent due to their lack of knowledge of the situation. The second part is the grave lack of due discretion of judgment. This means that if a person lacks maturity, they do not have yet the capacity to fully understand the meaning of marriage. They cannot commit to something they are not fully aware of. And lastly, the incapacity to assume the essential obligations of marriage. Both individuals must be aware of the responsibilities that they need to uphold and their obligations that they need to fulfill once they are married. Both individuals should be able to think rationally, meaning everything that they say should be correct and logical. Every choice they make comes with a consequence, so they should decide responsibly. Moreover, a decision should come with an action. So to summarize this part, both individuals should be in a good mental condition to be able to give each other their matrimonial consent. The first factor that hinders the exchange of consent is the individual's psychological capacity or the psychosomatic incapacity. To further explain this topic, there are three main aspects that needs to be considered. First is the lack of use of reason. If they possess any mental illness or is under the influence of any intoxication, they are not eligible to give their consent due to their lack of knowledge of the situation. The second part is the grave lack of due discretion of judgment. This means that if a person lacks maturity, they do not have yet the capacity to fully understand the meaning of marriage. They cannot commit to something they are not fully aware of. And lastly, the incapacity to assume the essential obligations of marriage. Both individuals must be aware of the responsibilities that they need to uphold and their obligations that they need to fulfill once they are married. Both individuals should be able to think rationally, meaning everything that they say should be correct and logical. Every choice they make comes with a consequence, so they should decide responsibly. Moreover, a decision should come with an action. So to summarize this part, both individuals should be in a good mental condition to be able to give each other their matrimonial consent.
The ability to comprehend, think, remember, and reason is a vital thing to consider when giving your consent in marriage. Thus, cognitive incapacity can result to a marriage consent being voided. In entering a marriage, both individuals must be informed that marriage is a permanent consortium, ordered procreation, which also comes with raising children, and sexual cooperation. Failing to acknowledge these facts is called an ignorance, stated in Canon Law 1097. False judgment of a partner and being unaware of their qualities can revoke the consent given or will be given. This is called an error, stated in the Canon Law 1099. When an individual feels that their partner's quality is not what they ought to be, or feels like they were being deceived in order for them to get married, can also pose a reason to not give your consent in marriage. This is called fraud, stated in the Canon Law 1098. A person must have the freedom to decide whether they wish to proceed with the marriage or not. Examples of volitive incapacity stated in the Canon Law 1101 to 1103 are the following. Simulation or exclusion. This pertains to one or both parties rejecting the idea that marriage itself, its indissolubility, thus unity, sacramental dignity, and the procreative end of marriage. Condition speaks about whether the marriage consent is being held by a condition given by a partner. For example, giving a large sum of money or a promise about a thing that will be given once the person agrees to give their consent to marriage. Lastly, force or fears pertain to the coercion of a partner to give their marriage consent, such as blackmailing or abuse. Canonical forms are prescribed laws that should be followed in order for a marriage to be valid. Its purpose is to ensure that the marriage is done in a public or church institution. Proper intervention is done by a competent authority that represents the respective community, provides clarity and certainty, and lastly, protects the welfare of the couples being married. Canon Law 1117 requires both partners to be baptized in the Catholic Church in order to get married. If one of the partners left the Catholic Church by a formal act, the marriage may still continue. However, it must be done outside of the Catholic Church, meaning it will be a non-Catholic marriage. Canon Law 1108. The marriage must be done in the presence of local ordinary, pastor, priest, or deacon. A maid of honor or bestman must also be present as a witness to the marriage. Canon Law 1111. If the following official witnesses, are unable to reach the couple being married due to their territory, the marriage can still be valid as long as their marriage hold office validity. In order for the marriage to be valid, the general delegation must submit it in writing. For special delegation, it must be given for a specific marriage. Canon Law 1112. Lay official church witnesses. The diocesan bishop can delegate a lay person to help married partners given that they are competent to give instruction to partners getting married and are able to perform the matrimonial liturgy correctly. Canon Law 1104. Both parties being married must be present together, either personally or by proxy. The spouse should express their matrimonial consent in words. If they are unable to speak, signs may be used. When one or both of the parties are not physically present, a special mandate may be given to a specific person that the couple designated personally to fulfill the mandate. The mandate must be signed by the contracting parties, the parish, priest, or local ordinary, delegated priest, and two witnesses. The mandate must be in a civilly authenticated document. Canon Law 1116. Two common witnesses are a minimum requirement. A marriage without a qualified witness is possible in the instance of the danger of death or the possibility of death prudently foreseen that the same conditions will continue for a month. Canon Law 1119. This canon emphasizes the importance of maintaining the integrity and structure of the church rites to ensure the solemnity and the validity of the sacrament of marriage, except in the extraordinary circumstances where the usual rites cannot be followed. Canon Law 1120. This allows the Episcopal Conference to create its own rite of marriage, reflecting local customs in line with Christian values. This rite must be reviewed by the Holy See. However, it remains required that the person officiating the marriage must request and receive the consent of both parties. Canon Law 1115. This law specifies that marriages should be celebrated in the parish where either party has been a domicile, quasi-domicile, or 1 month residence. For transient, the marriage can be celebrated in the parish where they are residing. With the proper permissions, marriages may be celebrated in other locations.